to Tactical Survival, and I'm just going to wrap up these few videos that I've done on the Henry Survival Rifle and the Chapper Little Badger. And one thing I promised in the last video was just to go through a complete field strip and reassemble of the AR7. Out of all the rifles that I have and all the rifles that I've fired, I find this rifle to be the most difficult to strip. There's a lot of little parts in there. And for the topic of field stripping, which I went to briefly in the last video, I found this a very difficult rifle to, if you should strip it in the field. As I say, it's got lots of parts, and I've already established that this is a rifle that needs cleaning quite thoroughly and regularly, enabled for it to fire without misfires. So I've cleaned off the rifle. And what I wanted to go through in this video is just go through the stripping and reassembly of the rifle. First things first, please subscribe to this channel so I can put more content out and gauge what's working. And please hit that like button. Also, especially with this video, is please comment if you have one of these rifles and how you find field stripping it, taking it to pieces, that kind of stuff. And if you've got any tips and hints that you can pass on, that would be absolutely fantastic. I bought this rifle second-hand. It didn't come with instructions, so I was in a position where I was looking on how to strip the rifle down from YouTube videos. The initial field strip part is quite straightforward. I find there is one golden rule with this rifle, and it's a must, and it is to cock the rifle before you strip it. By cocking the rifle, what it does is it forces down the hammer at the back, so the working parts have a smooth way that they can exit the breech. But there is a little part in this, I'll go through this in a while, that tends to get stuck, and it makes it a nightmare. So what we do just to strip it is very simple. As I say, we cock the weapon, and you just kind of put your finger on the breech inside, just to pull it back just a tiny fraction. Take out the cocking handle, and then let the working parts slide forward. If you're lucky, it will all come out in one go. If you're not lucky, this horrible plastic bit is stuck in here. And this is what the plastic bit looks like. It's that. I think on the military rifles, I would imagine this is going to be a lot more substantial, probably made of metal. But this looks, I mean, it's that bendy plastic, but again with heat, if you put multiple rounds down and the weapon gets hot, this might become very brittle. One of these ping off. That's the end of your weapon, basically. Also, there's two springs. Instead of having one substantial spring, they've opted for two. Well, they almost look like the springs that you get on a ballpoint pen. And then you got the breech block itself, which is a good substantial piece of metal. So I'm just going to put that down there. So that will be your standard field strip, where you can start to clean inside the rifle, inside the breech, and you can oil it. You've also got the few actual working parts of the rifle. Clean and oil those, and everything on the outset seems pretty tickety-boo. Now, I had a problem the other day. I've got a little bit of video somewhere to show you this. The AR7 is, there is a plastic part that belongs up here with two prongs on it. The two prongs have fallen down into the parts here, which means I've got to do a full strip down of the rifle to get this horrible little part out. Again, if this was in the field, it'd be very, very difficult to do. But this plastic thing here, I'll try and show you on the diagram, sits like so. I didn't cock the rifle, so the hammer was stuck up inside the chamber, like so. I got the breech block out, dead easy. Springs came out, but this little part hooked onto here. Not only did it hook onto here, it dropped and got itself wedged into the working parts where the trigger, magazine release and all the rest of it is. Could take that apart with a good pair of long tweezers, that kind of thing, but if you've got none in your field pack, then it's going to be a little bit of a problem. This Cabela's knife will not reach in far enough to release it, and the thing was basically stuck. So then I had the little shop of horrors, which is the working parts of this rifle, and it's everything behind this cover. The cover's secured by one single bolt, which is there. It also sits on a peg, which is important to realise later when you put it back together again. The hole in the thing has to sit on that peg, and it takes a heck of a lot of getting in and out. So once again, I was faced with the task of having to take off this plate. Now, I've done it once before, prior to this, and inside here, it's a bit like an alarm clock. There's lots of tiny little parts. I'm going to line them all up for you so you can see. And you lose any one of these parts, then your rifle's not going to work. It's very easy to drop these parts. There's a lot of springs that can ping off. Again, if you lose them in the field, you're not going to find them. So if you have to take this part of the rifle off, I would suggest that you do it inside, and you do it inside somewhere where you can catch all the bits should they start to fly. So the first thing that we're going to use is a flathead screwdriver. Get rid of all these tools. This was a notable little gadget I picked up the other day. It was for sale in Cabela's, and they got them on sale for $9.99. As I say, it's just like a little Leatherman multi-tool. It's got everything that you need in there, and pretty neat little tool. So I just have it in my gun pouch, and it's great for bits and bobs with all things rifle. So I'm just going to take this to pieces, and I'm just going to line up all the bits and pieces, and then we'll have a discussion. So unfortunately, on with the glasses. Okay, so undoing the screw. Now I do kind of overreact a little bit that this thing's going to ping out like an alarm clock, but there is parts in here that if they do ping out will shoot past your shoulder. So, and if they have jiggled free, then it's just kind of wise to be a little bit coy when you remove this top bit, or this plate, should I say. Okay. So again, with the nature of the rifle, you can probably see there's going to be a lot of dirt and grit and crap come down the breech and get trapped into here. So every couple of shots, you're going to have to strip this down and fire it anyway. Now, the pieces to watch out for are this spring here, which is part of the magazine release clip. That's just like, it's literally a ballpoint pen spring. It's pressed in, there's no real groove for it. That can fly out. And then you've got this big spring here. And when I tried to strip it without instructions, all this kind of flew out into my hand, and next thing, it took me quite a considerable amount of time to put it back together. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to release this spring. And to do that, I'm just going to take this hook knife and try to remove the spring. There we go. That spring is absolutely tiny. We can then remove the magazine release. This part's quite easy to identify because you've got the serrated edge which goes in the trigger guard, which you use with your finger to release the magazine. So there's no other way that that can fit in the rifle rather than just have that sitting on the pin with that part down. Okay, this actual pin comes out, which is quite strange. So the pin that holds the magazine release clip in also comes out. And again, this is a tiny piece that you can lose very, very easily. We'll then take this piece of metal out here. Again, this piece of metal can only go in one way. Can't really go in that way. It just sits nicely into there. Yep. So that will be your first part to put back in, and the magazine release comes over the top of that. Now we move on to the hardest part of the rifle, which is this part here, the hammer. Now this spring coils around this drum. Again, this drum's removable, and it goes onto this pin here, flips over the top of it, and flips over the top of it on the other side. That's what makes it awkward, because it's very difficult to get that. There's two of these, one's on the back side. It's very difficult to get that over the pin. Now, if anybody's got any tips, hints and tricks of doing this, that would be fantastic. I'd love to hear them, because it is a battle. So again, you've got to be careful that things don't ping out. Things like, I think this comes out, and certainly that comes out. So we don't want to lose these two pieces here. Okay, so remove this. Ow. Watch your finger, because it pings straight into it. Okay, try and remember where this spring sits. I'll go into it a little bit more in a while, but it's important. And when I tried to put the rifle back without instructions, this was a bit that took me the most trying to sort it out. Okay, so try and get that out. As I say, it's just behind there, look. So try and lift that up. Take out the trigger, if I can. The more you can get this clear, the more you can kind of whittle off the trigger. It's almost like you need three hands. But again, you imagine doing this in the field. There we go. Imagine doing this in the field. On a dark night, and it's wet and you're tired. It's going to be almost impossible. So again, this little cam here comes out, and I'm going to put it into the collection of other tiny pieces. Also, that comes out of there. Again, we're going to put it into the collection of little tiny pieces. It looks like it's the same diameter and same length as the other piece, but that's that. Then there's a hammer, and should you need to remove it, you can remove the spring somehow. So take that out. Take the centre piece out. Again, another piece. And then what you've got to remember is this sits in like this on this little cam here. So when you put the spring back on, you've got to remember that the spring sits like this. The spring sits like this. It goes on with these two little prongs facing upwards and the ring at the back facing downwards. This piece of metal, the straight side, goes to the front of the breech, like so. A straight front. These little hooky bits go to the backside of the hammer, because when it actually cocks, this is the thing that basically clicks onto the trigger. So your trigger would be like so. Excuse me if I'm faffing about. I'll put the pins in, but so as that comes down, those two pieces there click together and the weapon's cocked for firing, basically. Yeah. So what you've got to do is remember that the straight part of the hammer goes forward. When you put this spring back on, you want the ring part here to hit the back. Like so. That goes on there. That's going to go up and hit there. Okay. It hits just under that little lip there. So look at the shape. Comes down, down, little lip there. That's where that spring sits. Or just down from that little lip. So that's it, fully stripped, as far as you can do it. So for a little rifle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 working parts. As I say, I find that absolutely over-engineered. You can still take the safety catch off if you remove that ring, but there's no real need to take off the safety catch. It's held on by that little ring there. But yeah, as you see, it's got a lot of parts, and the very, very tiny parts that can just literally get lost. Okay, so my least favourite part is to put this rifle back together again. As I say, please leave any comments, hints and tips that you have on this rifle, putting it back together again, because it is a pain in the arse. So I'm just going to plough ahead with it. Okay. So the first bit is the nightmare, which is the hammer. This little cam is off-centered. You got a long side and a short side. So again, straight side to the front. Needs to go in that way, I believe, because its actual other part that sits on that side is that part there. So it's going to sit like so. But we have to put in the accursed spring. So remember what I said, straight side forward towards the barrel. On goes the spring. And this is useful to do because at some time this spring will probably break, as will all the springs in this rifle. And set it up so, again, that's hitting that. Then pop in the little cam thing, its retaining pin. Now you see on the other side, and this is why you've got to get it kind of lined up, is the spring sits on the top, like so. That part of the spring has to fit over that. Now you've got these things in the way. You have to actually start to bend these springs. As I say, I've not found an easy way of doing this. And you're always in danger of these things starting to ping off. Okay. So, the trigger group can only go in one way, and that is on one of these little pins, which sit in there. The trigger then will sit on that pin. So we're starting to bend this one up. In this back hole, this horrible little pin sits. As you see, it's got two lips on it. So either side of that lip sits this spring, like so. Kind of hook into it. You can see that. Yeah. So the spring part rests on that lip. In goes that. And immediately you can see that this is totally in the way. So we're trying to lift it up. Put the spring on, put the trigger on. Make sure that's in. I think if you put it over that part, it's overstretching it. So you just got to literally fight with it. I've tried doing it the other way. It's got that in. So I'm just going to try and balance that on the top. So that horrible little prong's just balanced on the top of the hammer part. Pop that in. That's into there, and if I am super lucky, this will ping down onto it. And no, it hasn't. Okay. Try and work, can't work backwards because of that's in the way. So we'll do it again. So we'll just try and hook it straight over. Is it there? I think that might have it. Okay. Looks like it's on. That's the worst part of this rifle, is this part here. So the rest of it is quite straightforward now. That part goes on there. This part we've deduced can only go on one way, like so. This always permanently sticks up, this brass part here, copper part, sorry. Permanently sticks up. Goes on there. Very easy. And the last part, again, which is very super easy to lose, is this little spring here. I'll just use this toothpick thingy. Press that spring in there. So I'm doing it. Try it with this. Again, I never like compressing springs because they tend to shoot out if you're not careful. Okay, try it from the other end. As I say, I'm no expert at this, but I think this mechanism lets down the rifle. I really do. It seems way over unnecessary. So yeah. Now the next problem we've got is a side plate. The side plate has a screw hole, but it also has this little tiny hole there which is supposed to sit on this lug and keep it in place. If this lug is slightly out of it's not that one, sorry, let's go back. So the side plate has this hole for the screw. It also has this little hole to line it up, and it lines up on the worst part of the rifle, which again is this little point here. So that, what's sticking out on top, has to go through there. If it's in the right place, it'll go in. There is some jiggle room. If you do that, sometimes you can get it. But if the pin is too far out of centre, then It's not going to sit in. Again, this is a really awkward part of this rifle. Can't really get it with that. Okay, it's just sitting too far up. Sit down. Oh, you bugger. So, back to square one. It's come off. Ah, gotcha. Still gotcha. I'll try and pull that down there. See what I mean? It's horrible. That's nowhere near where it needs to be. Okay, see where that slides. It's absolutely so nearly there, but it just won't click in. Still just a fraction too high. I might have to speed this up, or we'll be here all night. There's no way of pushing it down. It's just fucking awful. There we go. Okay, we're in. There. Okay. Try and get it screwed in. So I'm sorry if people really like this gun. I love shooting it. It's a fun fantastic gun, but it's a high maintenance gun and cleaning it is not easy. So therefore, it's got limited use in my equipment for sure. Okay. Again, this little plastic piece, I'll try and set it up for success. Sits in there. The breech goes in with this cutaway part to the bottom. So basically, just now try and get this piece in to here. The hammer is now in the way. So this is actually done now. What the problem was last time, it's dropped into there. So it's just a nightmare. Horrible gun. Okay, I'll try and push the hammer down. Okay, push the hammer down with the screwdriver. So now this should go back in okay. That sits in there. Push the breech block back, pop in the firing pin, not firing pin, the cocking handle, and check out the working parts. Okay.